Welcome back to Afternoon Live. From the Philadelphia row house to the Portland bungalow, our next guest has documented the innovative and sometimes problematic history behind some of the most iconic housing styles that help shape our cities. We welcome the author of A Paradise of Small Houses, Max Podemski. Hi, Max.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You grew up in Portland, which I just love this, and the book starts with a description of your grandparents' house in Southeast Portland. Take me through that description and the house that your grandparents grew up in.
Sure. Well, they didn't grow up there, so...
I mean, not grew up. They built it.
They built
Yes.
it. So, yeah, my grandparents and my father were born in Poland. They went through Ellis Island. They came to Portland in the early 1950s. And they first settled in South Portland, which is a neighborhood that actually doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's right near PSU. But it was a Jewish and Italian enclave, and they lived in a little apartment there, and sort of every couple of years they would move farther out up Belmont Avenue in Southeast Portland. And in the 60s, they built a little red brick duplex right off of Belmont. And that's where my grandma lived, where, you know, I would go as a little boy.
Yeah, the description that you have of that house is just so intriguing to me, even up to the little candy bars that your mom had on shelves. I think, is that what started your love of urban planning? I mean, your attention to detail is amazing.
I mean, I think it maybe, you know, subliminally did, but I think it was really growing up in Portland. I mean, you know, Portland is really considered nationally to be sort of an epicenter of urban planning.
I didn't even know that.
When I was a kid here in the 90s, you know, the Pearl District was just getting off the ground, the streetcar.
Right, that's where I live now. So.
Yeah, really just exposed to all that. And I think that really, you know, growing up here is something that really, you know,
it shaped you.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. So what motivated you to write this history, basically, of all the different housing across the country?
So, you know, Portland and across the nation is really facing a huge housing crisis. And I really wanted to, you know, remind people that this country really has a rich tradition of dense urban housing.
Right.
Going back to the Philadelphia row house, the Chicago Workers Cottage, the bungalow. And these buildings, as opposed to a lot of, you know, new housing being built today, was really built by and for working class people, often immigrants.
Right.
And gave them, you know, light-filled apartments where they could raise a family close to their jobs. And close to neighborhood amenities, and we've, you know, really gotten away from that model. And so I think, you know, one of the ways we can get out of this housing crisis is really looking to the past and looking to these older building styles.
Right. Do you think we can get back to that?
Yeah.
Do you think there's hope for us?
I think there's hope, but I think, you know, it really starts with changing our conception of housing.
Yeah.
In the United States, we're very attached to the idea of a single family home on a large lot with a yard. And that's a great way to live. I live that way, but there's a lot of different ways to configure housing, you know, from duplexes to row houses. And a lot of these housing styles, you know, they create, you know, large apartments with light and air, and they're more affordable ways to build. And I think, you know, opening up more of our communities to different types of housing is definitely a way out of the housing crisis.
Right. So going through your book, so talk about the organization of your book, because it is really great history of all the different, like the tenement apartments in New York City. I was just there and admiring those. And you take them in chronological order. Tell me more about that.
Sure. So each chapter of the book is about a particular housing style in a particular city, but it sort of tracks the evolution of the American city and how housing has changed and evolved. And so it starts in Philadelphia, which was founded by William Penn sort of as this utopia and this antithesis of these dense, crowded European cities where you had disease and fire.
Right.
And he wanted what he called a green country town, and he actually wanted every house to be a freestanding house on its own lot, surrounded by a garden.
Wow.
So sort of back to the earliest you know, history of this country, we have that ideal of a single family home. But the reality was that, you know, people needed to be close together. So we get the creation of these row houses, which are these extremely narrow, some are only 12 feet wide, houses, you know, stuck together, sharing a party wall. But these houses gave even, working class people the ability to buy their own house.
Right.
And they had a yard, and they could, sort of go from, living in crowded tenements to being in the middle class.
Right.
And that's where the title of the book comes from, Paradise of Small Houses. It's actually from a Harper's Magazine article from the teens, and someone going to one of these working class neighborhoods in Philadelphia and just marveling, everyone has their own house.
Wow.
Even, poor workers.
I love that. And now let's get to the Portland bungalows, because that's an iconic house style here in Portland.
Yeah. So we have, earlier cities, so the tenement, the workers' cottage, the row house. And, really up into the 20th century, housing was really composed to 1 to 2 rooms. And the rooms would not be really differentiated. You might sleep and cook in the same room, and your bathroom was probably located in an outhouse, and your kitchen might be in a basement.
Right.
And the bungalow is really one of the first, modern houses as we know it, where you had differentiated rooms. You had a bedroom, you had a dining room, and you had a bathroom and a kitchen inside your house. And Portland, really grew into a large city in the early 20th century when the bungalow was becoming popular. And that's why so many of our neighborhoods here are still defined by bungalows.
Right, and you can find bungalows in the urban area. I mean, in a walkable location to a lot of thriving businesses and restaurants, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just, a mile from downtown, you're in a, leafy neighborhood full of bungalows.
Yeah, well, there's so much great information in your book, and thank you for joining us. And we want to tell everyone, Max has a book event tonight at 7 at Powell's on West Burnside, and we'll have all the details for you on our website at KATU.com. The book again is A Paradise of Small Houses, and for more information, just head to KATU.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.